All right, this would be the lesson that we are calling 6.3% and decimals. And just to review a little bit, percent means per 100. It's a ratio that can be written as a fraction of 100, as a decimal number, or using the percent symbol. So if I have 75%, normally rewrite it like that, 75%. But 75% also means 75 per 100. So we can write it as a fraction. 75 over 100 is also said as 75 100ths, which as a decimal looks like that, 75 100ths. So these are all ways to write 75%, 75 per 100. But sometimes we're not thinking about just 100, right? We've got different numbers. So if we want to find a part of a number, like we want to find 75% of 120. Well, we transfer this 75% into a decimal number, and then we multiply it by the total quantity, by the whole. So 75% of 120 is 90. So one way to think of this is a part equals the percent times the whole. Another way of thinking it is the percent equals the part divided by the whole. So it just depends on what kind of information we're getting for which kind of math problem we want to do. Let's look at this example. Rusty has a collection of sports cards, and 35% of the cards are baseball. Rusty has 520 sports cards. How many baseball cards are in Rusty's collection? So the first thing we need to do is take this 35% and turn it into a decimal. So 35%, an easy way to turn something into a decimal is from the percent sign, go to the left 2 spaces, and then erase your percent sign. So 35% equals 0.35. You always start where the percent sign was and go 2 spaces to the left and add your decimal. So 35% is 0.35. We already know that the part equals the percent times the whole. So 0.35 times 520 is going to tell us how many of his sports cards are baseball cards. And when we multiply that out, we get 182. So in this case, it was the percent, transforming it into a decimal, times the total number of cards, gave us how many of them were baseball cards. Okay, let's do a couple of these together, and then remember, Miss Laura has an answer sheet, and so if you want to try any of the others on your own, which I highly recommend, you can check your answers with her and see how I worked them out. So what is 5/20 expressed as a percent? Well, remember, percent is always over 100. So basically what they're asking is, what's this number right here? And all we got to do is cross multiply. 20 times P equals 5 times 100. And then we divide both sides by 20, and we get P equals 25, 25%. So if anytime they're asking you from a fraction to a percent, always check your denominator. Your denominator in a percent has to be over 100, and then you can simplify from there. So 5/20 is actually the simplified version of 25 over 100. So that's number one. Number two, what is 0.56 expressed as a percent? Well, we just do the opposite of what I showed you a couple of minutes ago. Start at your decimal place, and instead of going left, go right 2 places. So then that becomes 56, and add your percent sign. Oops, sorry, that one. Sometimes you have to do a little bit more math. Let's look at number 4. On a necklace of 175 beads, 52% of the beads are glass and the rest are plastic. How many beads are plastic? There's a few different ways that you can do this. One of the ways is you can find out first how many beads are glass, because they've already told us out of 175 beads, 52% of them are glass. So remember, 52%, first we turn it into a decimal. So start at the percent, go over 2 spaces to the left. Then, so we've got our percent times our whole, 175, and that equals 91. So 91 of my beads are glass. From this point, I know out of 175 beads, 91 are glass. So if I subtract those 91 glass beads, that's going to tell me 84 beads are left over, and those are my plastic beads. So that's one way to do that. Let's look at number 9. Jessica deposited $850 into a savings account over 1 year. The annual interest rate in the account is 5.5%. What is the balance in Jessica's account at the end of the year? So our balance is going to be what Jessica deposited over the year plus her interest rate. Well, we know that Jessica deposited $850. So we just got to figure out what her interest rate is. Her interest rate is 5.5% of $850. So again, we take this 5.5% and we turn it into a decimal. So I go over 1 and then 2, and I make my new decimal point, and I take off my percent sign. So my percent as a decimal is 0.55 times my total amount, which is 850, and that gives me $46.75. So now I need to add $46.75 to my original 850. And that gives me $896.75. The balance is deposit plus interest rate. Let's do one more. Let's try number 10 on the next page. There are 12 female nurses and 8 male nurses on the post-operative floor. What percent of the nurses are female? Well, remember, percent equals part divided by the whole. So we want to figure out what percent of the nurses are female. We know that there are 12 female nurses on the post-op floor. My whole, though, is going to be my female nurses plus my male nurses. So that's going to be 20. And then just to find my percent, I divide. So 12 divided by 20 is 0.6. And to take my decimal back into a percent, I start at my decimal point and I go over 2 spaces and I add my percent sign. So that's 60%. So in most of these scenarios, they gave you the whole, or you had to do a little bit of math to find the whole, and they wanted to know what the percent was. But we can also be given a part and a percent, and from that we can find a whole. So that's on the next page. So just like a part equals the percent times the whole equals the part divided by the percent. And remember, in all of these, we're transforming our percent into decimal form. Okay, so in this example, in Elizabeth's collection of seashells, 35% of the shells are less than 1 inch wide. If she has 42 shells that are less than 1 inch wide, how many shells are in her whole collection? So we're looking at whole equals part divided by percent. This is what we're trying to find. So part would be 42 divided by our percent as a decimal. So we start at the percent sign and we go 2 spaces to the left. So it's 42 divided by 0.35, which is 120. So how many shells are in her collection? 120. Let's do some problems together. 18 is 9% of what number? Well, first let's take our 9% and let's make it into a decimal, right? We start at the percent sign and we go 2 spaces over and draw our decimals. So 9% is 0.09. Then we know we want to do part, which is 18, divided by percent as a decimal, which is 0.09, and that equals 200. So sometimes it looks as easily written out as that. Sometimes it's on a story problem. Let's look at number 6. A 20% tip on a dinner bill is $3.25. How much is the bill before tax? Well, 20%, remember I start at the percent sign and I go 2 spaces to the left and draw my decimal. So 20% equals 0.20, which is the same as 0.2. So then I do my part, which is 3.25. I divide it by my percent, which is 0.2, and I get my whole, which is 16.25. Let's do number 7. Logan has saved 60% of the money he needs to buy a new motorcycle. He has saved $75. How much does the bicycle cost? Well, first, 60%, we start at the percentage, we go 2 spaces to the left and draw our new decimal. So 60% is the same as 0.6. So my part is 75, my percent is 0.6, and my whole then is $125. Let's do 2 more on the last page, and then I'll let you try some on your own. And you can check your answers with Miss Laura. She's got my answer page. Or you can also ask her any questions. On a test, Mason received a score of 85%. If Mason answered 170 questions correctly, how many questions were on the test? So first step, 85%. Start here, 1, 2 spaces. So 85% is 0.85. So the part that Mason answered correctly is 170 divided by percent as a decimal, which is 0.85. And as I divide that out, that gives me 200 questions on the test. Last one, 14. Matt purchases a car. He pays $720 in sales tax. The sales tax rate is 6%. How much did Matt pay for the car before tax? So my part is 720, 6% as a decimal. Remember, I've got my 6. Start here and go 2 spaces to the left and draw your decimal. So 6% is 0.06, and my whole is 12,000. So when you're looking at percentage problems, especially with sales tax or percentage off original prices, know what your part is, transform your percentage into a decimal, and know what your whole is. So know what goes where. Okay, you've got a lot of practice problems that you can try out and check your answers with Miss Laura. I hope you're doing well, and we will see each other soon.